sickening, contagious. Here I come, Jay-Z. There you go, there you go.
How we get down,
The format is real sickening, contagious. Here I come, Jay-Z. There you go, there you go.
How we get down,
Jay-Z. Here I come, Jay-Z. Here I come, Jay-Z. Here I come, there you go. Here I come.
how we get down.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Empowr podcast. Today, we're here at the Knowledge House in South Bronx, and we're speaking with Jerelyn Rodriguez. She is and co-founder of the Knowledge House. She also is an alum from Kip through College. She's alumni from Columbia University, and she was on Forbes 30 Under 30. Super, super dope. She's doing a lot of really creative things and really making a change in the community. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I just wanted you to get a chance to speak about, everything you guys offer here at the Knowledge House, and also maybe a little bit of background of why you decided to start this and how you got to be a CEO and a co-founder, because I'm sure it's an interesting journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, so this year we're celebrating our 5th anniversary. So we've been around for 5 years. And the reason why my co-founder and I started the organization is because he's a self-taught programmer. I, right after college, went into education, and I was really frustrated with the fact that we were trying to push all these kids into like college, right? And college worked for me. As you mentioned, I went to Columbia. It was great, but my friends, a lot of them didn't make it through college. And so I knew that we had to create programs that didn't leave people out. And these programs should provide access to high-paying jobs. And the tech sector provides a lot of opportunities for people that are low income, that probably don't have college degrees. But you see poor kids on the street, like they're always on their cell phones, right? So why not turn all of these kids into creators of tech and change that like consumer mindset? Like you can actually build things, right? The way to build these things is by learning code. So we started the Knowledge House 5 years ago as a way to provide alternatives to college that lead to high-paying jobs in tech. And so we offer 3 programs. So we have a K-12 program that we mostly offer to high school students, and they learn the design side of tech, hardware, they learn coding. And then for our adult learners, we offer job training. So we provide training to become a web developer or a data scientist.
Okay, so the web development's front end, back end, or
both? So
okay.
We have an intro class that focuses on the front end, and then people can learn full stack. So you learn, back end engineering in our advanced courses.
Okay. And as far as just the different fields that are within tech, what are the general, basic fields that people usually are drawn to or general population knows of?
Yeah, well, I guess when people think of coding, they're thinking of hackers. But a lot of our graduates, when they land jobs, their roles include software developer, software engineer, or specifically front-end engineer, front-end developer. If you're studying data science, you can actually have a data scientist role or a data analyst role. So it varies. And then we have students that just do the design stuff, so they don't really want to go into coding, but they stay as graphic designers, or they're just simply web designers. We have people that go into more the project management side of tech, so they become product managers, for example.
Okay. So do you guys also do cybersecurity or anything on that end?
We don't do cyber yet. We are about to launch a cybersecurity program in Washington Heights next year. But we do digital communication skills. So we do digital marketing, database, cleanup, social media management, stuff like this. Yeah.
That's interesting, because that's I want to say it's an emerging field, even though a lot of businesses already are aware. It's extremely needed. But there's a lot of businesses, even nonprofits, education centers, that don't understand how big it is.
Yeah.
And I've even seen job postings where it's they'll describe there's a position for a social media person, and they don't even know what salary to put. They're salary among experience, because you could tell that it's a very new field.
Yeah.
And I really just think there's a lot of money to be made, because if anybody has tried to gain a following, and it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Social media's a full-time job.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work.
I think, like, I always say every company is gonna be a tech company if they don't see themselves as a tech company, right? Like, you think of your regular, I don't know, corner deli, right? All the corner delis in the past just used to have like a paper menu. Now they have TVs that are projecting their menus, right? There needs to be some technician that is repairing that TV if something goes wrong, right? So more and more, we're seeing basic businesses turn to technology for solutions and to make their processes more efficient. Social media is part of that, right? Like, all of these businesses need an online presence, whether it's a one-page website or to be on Yelp, right? Or to be searchable on Google. And so you need technologists to help you set that up. So you're right, absolutely, it's a huge need.
So do you feel like Black and Latino population is starting to get on that wave of tech and understanding, hey, let's get these jobs, like, and if not, what are maybe some of those barriers to us understanding what's actually happening? Because a lot of people are saying this is the next boom, like this is the steel railroad stuff, like the 21st century.
Absolutely. I think that the social media jobs or the social media needs, we're all aware of, because I feel like I see a lot of my students, before they even learn what code is, they're already like blogging, or they have YouTube channels, or they have IGTV, content that they're creating. And I think that our generation especially, we're digital natives, and so we just know social media front and back. I think it's a different skill to know how to monetize that. You know what I mean?
The thing I feel about that, 'cause I have and still do see a lot of people our age who are, it's interesting, they're anti-social media, or they don't understand.
A lot of people are.
Yeah, because it's like we're born in that age where it's like right in the cusp of, we saw life right before it exploded, and then right after. So I think there's a big division between people who are like, yeah, I'm all in on this. And anytime anything's new or revolutionizes society, there's always going to be a group of people who are like, I kind of like how the old things were. But then they start getting left behind if they don't understand. Like, or start getting some more quickly.
Absolutely. I think, like, in the past, especially, social media was literally used as a social network. Like, you connect with your friends and your family on there. But now I see it more and more being used as a promotion tool. And so I think that's part of it. Your regular average Joe that isn't selling their business on social media, they probably still want the platform for personal use. And they just see it being like taken over by these folks that are, selling their products, or like selling services, or promoting hair and makeup, And so I think social media is more and more being used as a tool to gain followers and just have the most likes possible, etc., not to form deep connections. So I think that's what's dividing people. At least that's the feedback that I hear. But that's what I mean, right? Like, a lot of the folks in our generation are using social media, but there's a segment of folks that are actually using it to monetize, like, their skills and their products. So I think that we should be teaching all young people how to, use YouTube to make income, right? Everyone should have access to that. I think when it also comes to coding skills, we need to raise more awareness of those jobs, because everyone is using social media and everyone is playing video games, but they're not understanding what's like what it takes to build those platforms. And what better folks to build those platforms than the people that are using it every single day.
And what are some misconceptions about careers in tech? Because I feel maybe there's a large population who are either thinking, I'm not creative enough to do that, because they think it's all about creative, or there's people who are like, I'm not technical enough. So is it just the fact that people don't understand all the different things that are involved within the tech field, or all the type of people that can gain access to it?
Yeah, I think there's a misconception that to be a techie, you have to be like a math nerd. And there are some roles, don't get me wrong, that require like high analytical math skills, but not all of them.
So a good math person, what type of role would they probably be more aligned with?
Well, to be a great software engineer, it is so helpful to be great at math, for sure. However, I have students that they're just like logical and they can code without like being the traditional math nerd in school. You know what I mean? I think that you have to be able to solve problems and like research how to solve problems, and you have to have the stamina to keep problem solving. You know, I think persistence and stamina are very important skills, and if you're not like a math geek, as long as you keep trying, you can get to the right answer.
I always say, like, we have the internet. Like,
Right, exactly, that's what I'm saying.
And reading's so important.
Yeah.
Because if you can read, you can learn anything. And especially now, because we have access to the internet. And I think maybe we also have, a lot of people have the assumption that everybody has access to the internet. So I know there's a lot of initiatives like with Silicon Harlem, trying to make sure that people have 5G network. I just went to an event and they were talking about they have the Super Hub or some...
Yeah, they have a mesh network where everyone can like connect to it.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not too savvy on tech, so that I heard it and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. They're like, oh yeah, and New York was like, there's gonna be one in each borough, and we were able to get ours in Uptown. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, because forget downtown. No, just but
Keep everything uptown.
Yeah, but put some more resources uptown, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so not everybody has access to it. So, but a lot of people have cell phones.
Exactly.
So, is there a big difference between having access to desktop versus cell phone when it comes to just being more involved in tech and learning how coding works and all that, or is it the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, we're not in a point in time where like my students can code a whole website on a cell phone, right? So definitely you need a laptop or a desktop to code in an efficient way, but that might change in the future, you know what I mean? I do know that there are coding tutorials that live on apps, so you can learn how to code on a phone, on the train, for sure, you know what I mean? But access is really important. That's why all of the students in our population, like they're all on their phones, but sometimes they don't have data, right? So like they have to come to our office to connect to the Wi-Fi so they can use their phone, but they have the phone. But that means that they don't have stable internet at home. That makes a huge difference. You know what I mean?
So, what was it? I was gonna ask, I don't want to go into 5G and all too deep into tech.
I don't know a lot about it. So.
All I know is that 5G means it's going faster. That's all I know. It's like, but that does make a big difference. I was reading an article about it, which really means, when people say that, they really mean, I read the headline and made assumptions. I read the headline and made assumptions. I was like, oh, 5G actually sounds interesting.
Yeah.
But one of the things I want to ask, because I was super excited to come, because I strongly believe in everything you guys are doing here, especially the workforce development, making sure people are getting trained and having actionable skills to succeed in the real world. Yeah. Which school doesn't do that. It doesn't teach us to monetize any skill set. Right. It rarely teaches a skill set unless you're going to an actual engineer program. Yeah. So a lot of it's theory based. So you actually are. A
lot of it's also just test prep. Like sometimes you don't even get to the theory, you know?
Oh, yeah. Just so when like lower grades and stuff like that, standardized testing is like the worst thing in the world. In my opinion, I hate it. But then again, we don't really seem to understand how incentives work, how human beings work around incentives, but that's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other podcast segment.
Exactly. But what do you see workforce and education going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, what's interesting about, I'm going to call it the human services sector, because that includes education and workforce development nonprofits. I find more and more that these big nonprofits that provide multiple services to kids and families. So we're talking about huge nonprofits like BronxWorks, Children's Aid. They have been providing basic job training for years, right? But the tech part of that usually consists of Microsoft Word, and how to connect to your computer. When I was in high school, that was my tech class.
Maybe speaking.
Right. And I find that the older nonprofits are still teaching those skills, So now those nonprofits are reaching out to us so that we can teach adults like what's the difference between like Microsoft Word that lives on your computer server versus like Google Docs, which lives on the cloud, you know? So there's a need now for people to actually learn how to use email, because you need email for every job, right? There's a need now to have a LinkedIn in addition to a resume, you know what I mean? So now there's just a basic digital fluency that is required for work, for any entry-level job. And so I see a lot of education nonprofits now asking for this digital literacy content. Same thing with workforce development. The traditional nonprofit that provides construction training or customer management for like, or customer service training for like retail jobs, now they're adding tech, right? Like they're adding a tech strand. And so we're hearing our community, and so we're partnering with a lot of these agencies to provide that basic tech training while we do the workforce development, which focuses on the code.
Okay, so how do you find your students? So how would a student or a person who's interested in tech be able to gain access and become part of a program like this?
Yeah, well, our alumni are very helpful in spreading the word.
Word of mouth is always
huge,
the biggest
right?
thing.
So we actually pay our alumni with like a little gift card if they do refer a student that successfully completes.
Oh, nice.
So most of our students are coming because their cousins did the program or their neighbors did the program. Because we work with schools a lot, the teachers and the principals that we work with also spread the word. And that way when parents hear about us, they're sending their kids or they're sending like their neighbors' kids to us. Social media also helps. So we blast a lot on social media. And then as I mentioned, we're partnering with all of these local nonprofits. So if we provide like one workshop to that nonprofit, then those students want to apply to our workforce programs. You know, so word of mouth, a lot of community engagement. It's really helpful.
Okay.
As I mentioned, right, like the reason why we started the Knowledge House was because after working in education for a while, you know, I wanted to find alternatives to college. So that was the problem that I was trying to solve, right? Like first, every entrepreneur needs to start with a problem that they're solving, you know? Then you have to test your solutions. And we went to a local nonprofit in Hunts Point that served families overall, but youth and young adults. And so we tried to recruit those students that weren't in college for some reason or another. So we chose 10, and we literally just piloted 10 classes. Every Saturday, we would teach 3D printing, digital marketing skills, and coding. And my co-founder and I taught some of it, but we also got tech entrepreneurs from the community to teach different modules. And so over the 10 weeks, our 10 students were able to create a variety of tech projects, 3D prints, like design campaigns and websites. And they were able to create portfolios and then pitch all of their projects at the end.
That's awesome. That sounds super dope.
That was our test. And so we were able to match a bunch of those students to startups in the Bronx afterwards, which was nice. So that was our first pilot, and we used that to go to funders and say, look, we tested this with 10 students in the Bronx. Here's what they built. This is how much money we need now to take this to the next level.
This is successful. Now, where's the money? We want that money.
Yeah, because no one's going to pay for anything that you haven't tested, you know? And the problem that you're solving needs to be real, right? So the fact that we were able to find a nonprofit, we were able to find 10 young adults, and they were from like citywide too. Like we had students coming from Queens traveling like 2 hours every Saturday on Saturdays. Yeah.
Oh, Queens to Bronx? That's
like,
a tough trip.
Right. So demonstrating the demand and the commitment that our participants had went a really long way when we started fundraising. After that, we piloted 2 more programs before we officially incorporated as an agency, as a legal agency. We partnered with the Harlem Children's Zone, and they had a need to get their summer fellows. to like learn tech skills. So they got us to teach 30 kids a bunch of tech skills. And then after that, we went to a middle school, and then we taught middle school kids how to code, which was really fun. So we got to test like a younger population to see what that experience would be like. And what we learned with the middle school program is that we could work with the young people, like the 16 to 24-year-olds that we had taught previously, and we can train them up a little bit so that they are the teachers of the middle school.
And when you teach something, you reinforce it, you know it even better.
So we started developing a model where we can customize basic training for youth and young adults, and not only were we teaching young adults tech skills, but we were hiring them, you know, so that while they were, you know, developing their portfolios and trying to look for like sustainable tech jobs, they were getting some income, reinforcing their skills, like you mentioned. And the middle school kids loved coding, and I think it's because they literally saw younger people that look like them teaching them.
And look, yeah, middle school kids, that age group, they'll look up to teenagers or the older kids and like, oh, I want to do that. An adult tells them, they're like, you're an adult, you don't know what you're talking about. A teenager, like, oh yeah, I'm with it.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's super interesting. It's a good idea. So when you guys started out, how many people were involved?
That's a good question. So for that first pilot with the 10 students, it was me and my co-founder, Joe Carano. He lives in the Bronx. He's from Brooklyn. He's a self-taught programmer. And he taught the coding part, and I taught the career part.
Okay.
And then we got 3 other tech entrepreneurs to teach 3D printing, digital marketing, and then entrepreneurship skills. So it was just us 2 and a team of volunteers. You know, me and Joe didn't pay ourselves. We both had jobs at the time because we were doing this on Saturdays. But, you know, we were feeding the kids. And so we had to, you know, take money out of our own pockets to like feed them every Saturday. And then all the supplies that we had to buy for the like demo day at the end all came out of our pockets. In fact, we started growing our team when we got our first grant. And even that grant, it was so small, I couldn't pay myself. So I decided to pay 2 other people before I paid myself. And luckily, you know, I was still living with my mom. So it was unfortunate that I couldn't pay, that I couldn't help her pay the bills. But, you know, I had a situation where I wasn't homeless, so I didn't need as much income. But it was an opportunity and a sacrifice to build my team in order to reach more students, because with more students, I was gonna get more funding, you know? So, my co-founder and I did not pay ourselves for about 3 years.
Oh, okay. But it's about the love, it's about the passion or the love of the game, you know, so building something from scratch.
I mean, you need to have passion, but like, because you'll be committed to a cause that you're passionate about, right? But you also need to be resourceful, right? And you need to be savvy. You need to also convince people to like work for no money. So you need to be a leader. You need to inspire people, right? Because those 2 staff members that we hired, they weren't getting paid full time. They were just getting paid a little here and there, but they were so committed. And they saw that me and Joe were making a lot of sacrifices to like get this off the ground, and they wanted to be a part of something new, you know? So we had 4 folks on our team for about 2 years, and then we got a big government contract, which changed the game for us. So in early 2017, we literally went from 4 to 12 staff members.
How was that transition to managing?
It was so hard.
That's so many personalities now too that you gotta.
Yeah, so many personalities. And then at that point, I had transitioned out so that I didn't have to teach anymore, which was good, but I missed my students, you know? And it was all about making sure that my staff were okay, making sure that they were set up for success, that they knew what they had to do, that they had the tools to get their job done, and that I was supported. So I had to learn how to be a manager. You know, I think like the first 2 years, I was practicing what it was to be a great leader, But after that, it was transitioning into learning management skills, you know? And it's a real skill set.
What do you feel like is the biggest trend? What do you feel is the biggest difference between being a good leader and then being a good manager? Because I feel like sometimes people are good managers but bad leaders, and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, a leader inspires people to act, right? A manager is setting a team up with tools to become productive, right? To actually get something done. You can inspire a whole bunch of people, but if at the end of the day they're not acting towards a common goal, you're not managing, you're just inspiring people, you know what I mean? When you manage a team, there's an outcome that needs to get done. And when the outcome is not being met, you need to manage, right? And you need to course correct. There are leaders that can inspire, but they can't hold people accountable, for example, right? A manager needs to develop skills where they are inspiring people, and when the people are not producing, they're giving them tools to actually improve or consequences when needed, you know what I mean? So that's the difference. Like, there's a way to give a consequence in a way that doesn't discourage someone, that it actually encourages them because you're keeping them in check and you're holding them accountable and you have high expectations for that person because you know that they have the potential to do the job. That's a whole skill set.
Yeah, and you have to understand
people's
who the
working
person
style,
is. Yeah, exactly. Because one thing will work for somebody and not for the other person.
Yeah.
And then there's also who you are as a person. So you get frustrated and you feel like there's a certain way you get. It's complicated. People are complicated, and managing systems or groups. I guess maybe creating a system makes it easier.
Well, that's the job of a manager, to create and maintain systems, you know? A good leader will learn good management skills, you know?
Do you remember the point where you and your partner were like, let's do this?
Let me try to think of when that happened. Well, so we actually had this opportunity before we launched that first program with the 10 students. We had this opportunity to pursue like a Harlem community grant where I think it was a community center. They had like a garden space that they were trying to convert into like a resource center, which would have a computer lab. And so we were going to support that project and then provide the technical content for the computer lab, basically. And it was me and Joe, and it was 2 other people. It was just our friends, right? And so us 4, we were trying to do this big project. We didn't end up getting the grant. And so the team kind of broke up. But at that point, Joe and I were like, we don't need to wait for money. We just need to do this. The problem is so urgent, and we can figure it out ourselves. We're smart, right? And so we just started it right there. We were like, fuck it. Let's just find a local community organization. Mm-hmm. We found one quickly. They got the students. All we needed to do was, pay for the food, which cost some money. But we were like, we believed in this so much that we knew we were gonna get the money back, And so that's when we were like, well, let's just do it.
So is there I feel like at that stage, a lot of people have an issue of getting to the next level of the planning and the action stage, because they feel they're not confident enough that, I have the skills, or I know exactly what I'm doing yet. I need to know exactly what I'm doing before I take action.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
I think just like we were talking about technologists and like how you can literally find anything on the internet, it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. Literally YouTube has classes and classes of entrepreneurship where you can learn how to validate a problem, how to test a solution, how to market yourself, right? You can learn all this stuff for free online. So it's all about commitment. Are you committed to actually doing the work and taking the time to learn your craft, right? As long as your problem is real and you have the confidence to test your solution, that's all you need. Because even if you test the solution and you get it wrong the first time, if the problem is still a real problem, you just gotta test a different solution. But that takes patience and commitment, right? Like you literally just have to keep trying things until you get it right. And if you're committed to solving the problem, you're gonna get there, right? And if you fail the first time and you try again, you're gonna get there eventually. Literally, all you need to do is not give up. And you can become an entrepreneur. But that's the hardest part, persistence. It's not about skills, it's about persistence. And if you're confident enough to keep figuring it out,
You develop the skills.
right, you teach yourself.
So research is a big part of it.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite places to go, and do you have any go-to places to get research or to find some research reports, or what does that look like to start the process of researching? Is this an actual need, or am I just making an assumption that it is?
That's a good question. So when it came to just researching entrepreneurship stuff, literally like a quick Google on like entrepreneurship and startups made me become familiar with the top books and the top like terminologies that are being used in the startup world. So just through basic research, I was exposed to the lean startup model, like the business canvas, and from there I started digging and finding like free courses on Coursera and on YouTube where I was literally learning all of this stuff. And then going to tech meetups helps a lot too, because then you find out about the accelerator programs that are free, right? Like there are programs that are free to participate in where you actually get money if you successfully like complete a startup idea, you test it, etc. There's one that recently launched in the Bronx called Communitas, right? And so every year they provide basic startup training to aspiring entrepreneurs, and they get support to develop a solution to a problem, test it, and like pitch it to an audience, and the person that wins the pitch gets money. You know what I mean? There's a lot of programs like that now. So right now there's like no excuse, I think at least.
That sounds awesome. Is it on the weekends, or is it it's a full-time thing?
Well, I think it's like, you know, after work hours and on the
okay.
weekends. Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of programs like that. Like that's not the only one. Now, some of them are competitive, like you need to apply to get in. But again, as long as your problem is real and you think your solution has legs, like it's promising, right? So how do you know if your solution has legs? Well, what we did is we tried to do research on the local nonprofits that were trying to solve the problem we were trying to solve. And what we found is that there were some nonprofits that were providing tech training, but they weren't focusing on coding, you know? And so that's where we were like, okay, there's a need here, there's a gap in the market. And so most people in the Bronx at the time, 5 years ago, that wanted to learn technology, they were either going to like Perscolas or like the CUNY campuses to learn IT training. You know, like computer repair and all that stuff. We realized that if we provided coding, that would make us a little more different, and people in the Bronx would have access to higher paying jobs in tech. And at the time, we were the only ones doing it. So it was like a no-brainer to funders. Like they would always ask us, what makes you different from this nonprofit? And we were like, well, this, you know? That was basic research that I did. And then I started connecting with these nonprofits. So I actually sat into like an application, like an interview session at Perscolas, and they do group interviews, and I got to see what it's like for them to meet applicants, interview them, and like what their criteria was for selection. And I got to, you know, think about it. Well, will our selection process be similar? You know, like, do we need a different selection process because we're teaching a different skill set? Or should we, you know, stay similar? And luckily, you know, Perscola saw us as a partner, not as a competitor. And that's because we weren't really competing. We were not doing something that they were doing, you know?
Yeah, because I've been over there. I know some of the stuff that they do. It sounds like you guys are, it's tech, but it's different aspects of tech.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to do it. Like, what a disservice to just reinvent the wheel and do the same thing that someone else does. You're not meeting a need, you know what I mean? You're just duplicating a solution that's already working. So we were able to really serve this population with a new offering, and we were able to grow that.
We've been talking about the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see the Bronx heading, And how can we make sure people of color are here and ready to jump on top of opportunities and be in front of things changing?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, right? Like, it's so important for everyone to have basic digital fluency skills, even for their first job, you know? So I think the Bronx as a borough needs to make sure that the schools, the nonprofits, the government agencies that provide job training, that they are providing this digital fluency so that we don't leave anyone out, you know what I mean? You can't get a job if like you don't know how to type, if you don't have an email set up. The way to get jobs right now is through LinkedIn, you know? So we need to prepare our population with the bare minimum. And then I'm hopeful that we bring computer science to every school. You know, as you mentioned, schools are not teaching the skills of the future, and we need to change that, you know? And the thing is, the kids in Lower Manhattan, they're getting this content, but the kids in the Bronx aren't. So we can't leave the borough behind. And I'm really hopeful that the people in the Bronx start working together more to create their own businesses. Because the people in the Bronx, we're already entrepreneurial and we're innovative, right? Like, hip hop started here, we're super creative. And so if we just include more tech, then we're literally contributing to the innovation economy. You know, as I mentioned, we're not only consuming technology, we're producing it. Like, we're already, we already have this business mindset. Imagine if now people are empowered with tech skills and they're already business savvy. We can create anything.
Definitely. Do you think there's a way to change from a consumer mindset to a producer mindset? Because there are people who are just deep rooted into that consumer mindset.
Yeah, for sure. And those people, you know, they might stay consumers, but the more innovative people become tech savvy, the more they can bring people along, right? For example, all these consumers that are using social media, all these social media platforms have been created by white men, right? If we just get one technologist from the Knowledge House to create a social media platform that then all these black and brown kids in the Bronx start using, that will inspire them. Yeah. Because they're gonna see a black and brown person that created something that they're using every day, and then they'll be like, I can do that too.
And honestly, that's a big reason why we wanted to start this podcast, because we want, you know, Black and Latinos to see that, like, we are doing these things. Who is one of the most inspirational people you've met that inspires you to, you know, maybe it doesn't have to be somebody you directly know, but it'd be better if it is somebody you know.
Well, Freshman Sound Johnny, she's the founder of Girls Who Code. She has inspired me a lot. So before I started the Knowledge House, I was helping her campaign. In 2013, Freshman Sound Johnny was running for public advocate of New York City. And so before the Knowledge House, I was working in education and also doing community organizing. And so I was supporting her campaign, and I was trying to mobilize voters, mostly techies, because she started this nonprofit focused on tech. And by the way, that's how I got to engage with the tech community in the Bronx and in Uptown Manhattan. But seeing her start this, and she herself was not a technologist, but she was so motivated by the opportunity that tech skills can empower girls to actually become more involved in STEM. That was inspirational to me. And I realized, like, I don't need to be a techie to make a difference, you know? And I can be a woman entrepreneur and build something big that helps other people, and I can change the face of, like, the future of work. That was really inspiring to me. And so working for her and supporting her, and then seeing her transition, because she didn't make it to public advocate, right? So she quickly transitioned back to lead Girls Who Code, and is now doing public speaking, and she's written books, and she has a TED Talk about how she's inspiring women, and all of that is so inspirational. So you gotta see it to believe it, you know?
Yeah.
So she was my, like, model.
And it sucks that, like, we can't keep going on, that we have to end, because, like, I feel like there's so much we could talk about, just even when it comes down to like being a woman in tech, you know, more things into funding. There's just so much that we can go into. I guess
we can do part 2.
We can do part 2 at some other time. So I guess just to wrap it up, maybe something new that you're accomplishing, or something you recently accomplished, and then where people can find you.
Yeah. So something new that we're working on is that we are launching a fellowship in the summertime. It's called the 2020 Fellowship, and it's a new offering. It's a 12-month program where students will be able to learn intro content and advanced skills and get a paid internship all within 12 months. And we're promising our students that if they commit and are with us for 12 months, we can help them get their first job in tech, making a ton of money. So usually our programs right now are like 3 to 4 months, but we found that a lot of our alumni who did like 2 to 3 classes, so you know, like 3 4-month programs, that's already like a year, they are the ones that are the most employable and the ones that are making the most money. So we want to kind of package that up and offer it to new students to guarantee that you're gonna get this money if you do this. So the application will be live at the end of January. There will be a recruitment process, and then we'll kick off the program in the summer, and I hope people just apply and, you know, spread the word.
Do you know how many seats are available yet?
So we are aiming for 50 fellows. So
Okay.
we need 50 seats to be filled.
Hey.
Bring it.
Hey, I'm gonna push it and promote.
Yeah.
What's the age range?
18 to 35 is the preference, but anyone that is considered low income can apply.
You have to have your high school diploma?
You should have your high school diploma, or you need to be close to getting it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So you have to be somebody who's about it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, great. And then where can the people find you? Where can they find more about the Knowledge House and even your own personal story? Not personal story, but maybe just follow you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can find us online at www.theknowledgehouse.org. You can sign up to volunteer there. You can sign up to join a program. And you can also find us on social. So at The Knowledge House on Instagram, on Twitter, it's at The Knowledge HOU, because that was the character limit. We're on Facebook too, and please follow me. You can find me at Jerelyn_R on Twitter and Instagram. So happy to connect.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for letting us have the space and giving us all this knowledge and giving stuff to our audience and all that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks for sharing our story. So.
No, of course, and I probably will want to do a part 2 at some point.
Let's do it.
But yeah, this is great. But thank you very much.
Good luck to you too.
All right.
Thanks,
yes.
guys.
The format is real sickness, contagious. Here I come, Daisy. There you go.
How we get down.
The format is real sickness, contagious. Here I come, Daisy. There you go.
How we get down.